Students, today we'll have a discussion regarding map reading second lesson. Particularly, map reading is a very important lesson in the defense study. First of all, we have to understand what is map and what all information map gives us and how to set the map. Before setting the map, we have to find out the north. And there are different ways and means of finding out the north. By the means of any one of the method, we can find out the north and then we can set the map. As already told, map can be set exactly with the help of magnetic compass only. Otherwise, if we set with any other objects or the objects on the ground and the map, bringing them in the same line, that is almost a map set, but it is not exactly setting a map. Exactly map can be set only with the help of magnetic compass. And in finding out north also there are many means. Magnetic compass helps us to find out north. With the help of sun also we can find out north. And with the help of objects laying the map we can find out the north. With the help of watch also we can find out the north. Temples also help us to find out the north. And particularly graveyards also help us to find out the north. There are so many means of finding out north, but exact finding north can be done only with the help of compass. And after finding north, we have to set the map properly. That is exactly with the help of magnetic compass. And then next or further is, after setting the map, we have to find out our own position on the map. Where exactly we are on the map. To study further lessons, after setting the map, we have to find out our own position on the map. There is a method or a procedure for finding our own position on the map. There is a simple method. After setting the map properly, we have to select two objects on the ground which are visible and two objects on the map. The same object should be on the map also. The two objects selected on the ground which are visible and the same object's conventional sign should be on the map also. But another important point we have to note here, that those two objects selected in different directions to our left and right, and those two objects should not come in straight line with our own position, that is where we are standing on the ground. They should not be on the straight line. It will help us to find out the north easily. Otherwise, if they are in the straight line, we have to select another object also to find out exactly our position on the map. That's why while selecting the objects on the ground, they should not be on the straight line with our position. This is the point we have to keep in mind while selecting the objects for finding our own position on the map. The first one is, with the help of compass, take the bearing of one object which we have selected. And that bearing can be converted into back bearing. There is a method of converting the bearing into back bearing and back bearing into bearing. And that formula is called 180 formula. After taking the bearing, we have to convert that bearing into back bearing. The procedure of converting the bearing into back bearing is to use the 180 formula. The 180 formula means if the bearing is less than 180, then we have to add 180 to the bearing. That will be the point of our position. Though it is a back bearing of the object, by adding 180, it means that is the bearing of our own position from the object. And with the help of service protractor, service protractor will help us to find out bearing on the map, and it helps us to find out the distance on the map by using the scales. By studying the scale in detail, what scale is used in the map, with the help of the scale statement of the scale given, so we can find out the distance of the two objects on the map. This way the service protractor helps us. Then from that object we have to draw a line on the back bearing of the object. Keeping the service protractor in a proper way, we have to draw a line of the back bearing of the object. On the back bearing of the object means that line drawn will be passing through our position. But we know now we are on that line only. When we have taken the bearing of the one object, converted it into back bearing, and when the line is drawn on the back bearing line, on that line we are somewhere, but we don't know exactly where we are on that line. After drawing the line, we have to take the bearing of another object which we have selected. Taking the bearing, if the bearing is 180, once again use the 180 formula. If the bearing is less than 180, add 180 to it. If the bearing is more than 180, subtract 180 from the bearing. If the bearing is exactly 180, either add 180 or subtract 180. If we add 180, it will be 360. If we subtract 180 from 180, it will be 0. Both 0 and 180 show the same direction, that is north. If the bearing, suppose if the bearing of the second object is more than 180, subtract 180 from the bearing, and that will be back bearing of that particular object. That back bearing of that particular object means it is the bearing of our own position. Then with the help of service protractor, once again draw the line on back bearing, and that second line which joins the second line or crosses the first line, the point where both the lines cross each other, that will be our own position. Means we have taken the bearing of the first object, converted it into back bearing, and keeping the service protractor on the first object, drawn the line, and that line shows it is the bearing of our own position. In the same way, the back bearing of the second object also is the bearing of our own position, and we have to draw once again the line on the back bearing, and both the lines where they cross, that will be exactly our own position on the map. So this is the easy method of finding our own position on the map. Before finding our own position on the map, we must be perfect in setting the map. This is how we can find our own position on the map. Finding own position on the map is a very important aspect. It is a very important lesson, because this will help us to study further that map to ground and ground to map. For this, finding own position is very essential. Finding our own position on the map is essential. So this lesson is supposed to be a very key lesson in the map reading. Then going to the further action of map reading, that is map to ground. After setting the map, finding our own position on the map, mark that place with a pencil. Then select an object on the map. Take the bearing of that object with the help of service protractor on the map itself from our own position. Our position is already known on the map. From that point, take the bearing of that object and using the same service protractor, measure the distance of that particular object which we have selected on the map. Measure the distance and then take the compass, take the bearing of that particular object which is visible on the ground also, maybe half kilometer or 1 kilometer. Then take the bearing, exactly how much bearing this service protractor or the object on the map gives us. Because with the help of conventional science, what type of tree it is, whether it is a round tree, whether it is a tall tree, whether it is a Y-shaped tree, whether it is a survey tree, all it is mentioned on the map itself in the conventional science. So this is how finding the object on the map and finding the object on the ground. This method is called map to ground. Means the object which is on the map, if we find the same object on the ground, this is called map to ground. And next is ground to map. First of all, as we have taken the bearing and the distance of the object on the map first, now we have to take the bearing of that particular object on the ground with the help of compass. And then, as we have already come to know our own position on the map, our own position on the map will be different in a different places. If we go to a different place, once again we have to find out our own position in that area also. When once we have found our own position on the map, then take the bearing of the object with the help of compass and once again with the help of service protractor, keeping the service protractor on our position on the map. Then find out on that particular bearing. We have to judge the distance of that object with any one of the methods of judging distance. When we have learned the method of judging distance, there are 6 methods of judging distance. With the help of any one of the methods, you can calculate the distance of that particular object and then find out the same object on the map and with the help of service protractor, measure the distance of that object, then you will be finding the object on the map also. And this method is called ground to map. The first method is map to ground. The object is found on the map and that object later on is found on the ground. This is called map to ground. And in ground to map, the object which is found on the ground, which is once again found on the map, and this method is called ground to map. Here, for the activity map to ground and ground to map, the two instruments, compass and service protractor, are very essential. Without these two instruments, we cannot do the ground to map and map to ground exercise. I hope you have understood the difference between map to ground and ground to map and finding our own position on the map. If you had any doubts in the regular class, you can consult and clarify it. Next, we will go further grid system and night march. Thank you.